Imagine starting your day as an ordinary construction worker, only to uncover something extraordinary beneath the earth. What begins as a routine dig leads to a discovery that changes everything. This story will leave you in awe, and with a new appreciation for the bond between humans and animals. The sun had barely risen over the city skyline, casting a golden glow on the bustling construction site. Workers moved like ants, their steel-toed boots kicking up dust in the cool morning air. Jack, the foreman, was already in his element. Clipboard in hand, he barked orders to his team, ensuring the day's tasks were on track. Everything seemed ordinary, until the moment that changed everything. The steady rumble of excavators digging into the earth filled the air. Jack leaned over to Mike, his second in command, pointing toward the east end of the site. "Make sure the foundation markers are double-checked. I don't want any delays," he said. Mike nodded, walking briskly to the indicated area. Suddenly, a sharp, high-pitched sound pierced through the noise of machinery. Jack froze mid-sentence. It wasn't a sound he associated with a construction site. It was faint, almost like a whimper. "Did you hear that?" Jack asked, scanning the area. Mike stopped in his tracks, tilting his head. "Yeah, sounded like an animal. Maybe a stray?" The workers exchanged puzzled glances. The usual clatter of shovels and drills momentarily halted. Jack waved his hand. "Everyone quiet for a second." The noise subsided, and there it was again, a soft, distressed cry coming from the direction of a freshly dug trench. Without hesitation, Jack and Mike moved toward the source of the sound, a few workers following close behind. When they reached the trench, Jack peered down, squinting to make out anything amidst the layers of mud and debris. "Mike, grab a flashlight. I can't see a thing down there." Mike returned moments later, handing Jack a sturdy flashlight. Jack flicked it on and shone the beam into the trench. At first, all he saw was the churned-up earth, but then something moved, a slight tremble amidst the muck. He focused the light on the spot and gasped. "There's something alive down there," Jack said, his voice tight with urgency. "Get me a rope. We're pulling it out." A worker dashed off to grab a coil of rope, returning in seconds. Jack fastened the rope around his waist and signaled to Mike. "Hold steady," he instructed as he carefully climbed down into the trench. The closer he got, the clearer the shape became, a small creature trembling and caked in mud. Its eyes reflected the flashlight's beam, wide with fear. Jack crouched low, his voice softening. "Hey there, buddy. It's okay. I'm here to help." The creature didn't move, too weak or too terrified to react. Jack slowly reached out, his gloves coated in mud, and gently scooped it up. The little body was cold and fragile, shivering uncontrollably in his hands. He tied the rope securely around himself and gave the signal for the crew to pull him up. As he emerged from the trench, the gathered workers crowded around, their faces etched with curiosity and concern. Jack placed the creature on a patch of clean ground. Someone handed him a bottle of water, which he used to carefully pour over the mud-covered body. Slowly, features began to emerge. A small snout, pointed ears, and a tail. "It's a dog," Mike said, his voice full of relief. Or, wait, is it? Jack shook his head. "I'm not sure. It's too covered in mud to tell." The creature let out a weak whimper, its body convulsing slightly. Jack's face hardened with resolve. "We can't leave it like this. Mike, get my truck ready. We're taking it to the wildlife clinic." Mike nodded and sprinted toward the parking lot. The rest of the crew quickly found an old blanket, wrapping the trembling animal to keep it warm. Jack cradled the bundle in his arms as he walked briskly to his truck, the workers trailing behind. By the time they reached the clinic, Jack's shirt was smeared with mud and his arms ached from holding the fragile creature. The clinic staff, led by Dr. Sarah, rushed out to meet them. "What do we have here?" Dr. Sarah asked, her practiced hands already unwrapping the blanket. "We're not sure," Jack replied. "Found it in one of the trenches on site. Looked like it wouldn't make it if we didn't get it out." Dr. Sarah nodded, her expression calm but focused. Let's get it inside. Jack followed as she led the way into the clinic, the sterile smell of antiseptic mingling with the earthy scent of the muddy animal. Dr. Sarah placed the bundle on an examination table, her team springing into action. One of the assistants gently began cleaning the mud off while another checked its vital signs. Jack stood to the side, watching anxiously. Mike joined him, whispering, "Do you think it'll make it?" Jack sighed, his eyes fixed on the little creature. "I hope so. It's a tough little thing, surviving that mess." After what felt like an eternity, Dr. Sarah turned to them, a small smile breaking the tension. "It's a young fox," she announced. "Probably no older than 4 months." "A fox?" Jack repeated, his eyebrows raising in surprise. "Yes," Sarah replied. "She's exhausted and scared, but nothing seems broken. With care, she should recover just fine." Relief washed over Jack and Mike. "What now?" Jack asked. "We'll keep her here," Sarah explained. "She needs rest, proper food, and some time to regain her strength. You did the right thing bringing her in." Jack glanced at the fox, now cleaned and wrapped in a soft towel. Her fur, a reddish hue beneath the dirt, seemed to shimmer faintly under the clinic lights. Her eyes, though tired, held a spark of life that hadn't been there before. "We found her in the mud," Mike said, his voice soft. "Maybe we should call her Muddy." Dr. Sarah chuckled. "Muddy it is, then." As Jack and Mike left the clinic, they couldn't help but feel a sense of accomplishment. They had started the day expecting nothing more than dirt and machinery, but they ended it knowing they had saved a life. The ride to the wildlife clinic was tense. Jack gripped the steering wheel with one hand, the other steadying the bundle of blankets where Muddy lay. Mike sat beside him, glancing back at the still, fragile creature. "Think she'll be okay?" Mike asked, breaking the silence. Jack sighed. "I don't know, but we're doing what we can. That's what matters." The clinic, a modest building surrounded by dense greenery, came into view. Jack parked hastily and they both hurried out. As they approached the entrance, a woman in a white coat stepped outside. Dr. Sarah, a veterinarian with years of experience, greeted them with a calm, reassuring smile. "What do we have here?" she asked, motioning for them to follow her inside. "We found her in the mud at our construction site," Jack explained, his voice laced with urgency. "She's in bad shape, but alive." Dr. Sarah nodded, her movements efficient and purposeful. She gestured toward an examination table. "Let's take a look." Jack gently placed the blanket-wrapped creature on the table. The fox let out a faint whimper as Sarah carefully peeled back the layers of fabric. Her team gathered around, murmuring softly. "She's covered in mud," Sarah observed, her hand steady as she checked for injuries. "We'll need to clean her up first to assess her condition." Jack and Mike watched as Sarah's team sprang into action. One assistant prepared warm water and a soft cloth, while another checked the fox's vital signs. "She's dehydrated but breathing steadily," Sarah noted. "That's a good sign." Mike stepped closer, his brow furrowed. "Is it a dog? We couldn't tell with all the mud." Sarah smiled slightly. "Let's find out." As the assistants carefully cleaned the mud away, the little creature's features began to emerge. The small pointed snout, sharp ears, and reddish fur made it unmistakable. "She's a red fox," Sarah announced, turning to Jack and Mike. "A young one, probably around 4 months old." Jack exchanged a surprised glance with Mike. "A fox? We thought it was a puppy." "It's not uncommon for foxes to wander into urban areas," Sarah explained. "She must have gotten lost, or worse, abandoned." The revelation hit hard. Jack looked down at the now clean fox, her fragile body trembling. Her wide, dark eyes scanned the room, filled with a mix of fear and exhaustion. Mike's expression softened. "She looks like she's been through a lot. Maybe we should call her Muddy for how we found her." Dr. Sarah chuckled, gently patting the fox's head. "Muddy it is. She's lucky you found her when you did." As Muddy lay motionless, her breathing steadied under Sarah's care. Jack felt a wave of relief, but his concern lingered. What happens next? "We'll keep her here," Sarah said. "She needs rest, hydration, and proper nutrition. Once she's stronger, we'll figure out whether she can be released back into the wild." Jack nodded. "If you need anything, supplies, funding, let us know. She's not just some random fox to us anymore." Mike chimed in, a small grin on his face. "Yeah, she's family now." Sarah smiled warmly. "That's the kind of spirit that makes these rescues successful. Let's focus on getting her healthy first." For the rest of the day, Muddy became the center of attention at the clinic. Sarah's team worked meticulously, cleaning her wounds, feeding her small portions of water and food, and monitoring her vitals. Jack and Mike stayed longer than they had planned, watching as Muddy's demeanor slowly shifted. Though still weak, she stopped trembling as much, her tiny body visibly relaxing under Sarah's care. "She's a fighter," Mike said softly, his arms crossed. Jack nodded. "That's why we couldn't leave her behind. She didn't give up, so neither could we." As the clinic prepared for the evening, Sarah approached them. "She's stable for now. We'll need to keep her here for a few weeks, but I'm optimistic." Jack extended a calloused hand. "Thank you, Doc, for taking care of her." Sarah shook his hand firmly. "It's what we're here for. But really, you're the ones who saved her." As Jack and Mike stepped out into the cool evening air, the weight of the day seemed to lift. The clinic lights glowed warmly behind them, a beacon of hope for Muddy and so many others like her. "Think she'll make it back to the wild?" Mike asked as they climbed into Jack's truck. "She will," Jack said confidently. "If she's strong enough to survive that trench, she's strong enough for anything." Mike leaned back, a small smile playing on his lips. "Muddy's got a whole team rooting for her now. She'll be just fine." The days following Muddy's rescue marked the beginning of her healing journey. The wildlife clinic, with its calm atmosphere and caring staff, became her temporary sanctuary. Dr. Sarah and her team worked tirelessly to ensure the little fox regained her strength. Muddy's first few days were touch and go. She was severely dehydrated and malnourished, her tiny frame barely able to support itself. Dr. Sarah monitored her vitals constantly, administering fluids and feeding her small amounts of specialized food. "She's responding well," Sarah told Jack and Mike during one of their visits, "but it's going to take time for her to regain her full strength." Jack leaned against the doorframe, watching Muddy sleep in a small enclosure lined with soft blankets. "She looks better already," he said, his voice filled with cautious optimism. "She's a fighter," Sarah replied, her tone reassuring. "Animals like her have an incredible will to survive." Mike crouched near the enclosure, his rough hands gently brushing against the side of the crate. "She's lucky we found her when we did," he murmured. As the days turned into weeks, Muddy's initial fear began to fade. At first, she cowered in the corner of her enclosure whenever anyone approached, but under the gentle care of Sarah and her assistant Alex, she started to relax. Alex, a soft-spoken young man with an easy smile, had a knack for gaining the trust of even the most frightened animals. He spent hours sitting near Muddy's enclosure, speaking to her in low, soothing tones. "You're safe here, little one," he would say, offering her small pieces of food. Gradually, Muddy began to approach him, her delicate nose twitching as she sniffed his hand. "She's warming up to you," Sarah observed one afternoon, watching the interaction from across the room. Alex chuckled. "Guess she likes my cooking," he joked, holding up a piece of freshly prepared meat. Sarah smiled but didn't miss the significance of the moment. It's more than that. She's learning to trust again. As Muddy's physical health improved, so did her personality. The once frightened fox started to show signs of curiosity and playfulness. Alex introduced toys into her enclosure, soft balls, ropes, and even a small stuffed animal. "She loves this one," Alex said, holding up a battered plush fox. "I think it reminds her of something familiar." Jack and Mike continued to visit whenever they could. On one visit, they were delighted to see Muddy pawing at the stuffed toy, her tail flicking back and forth. "She's got a lot of spirit," Jack remarked, his face lighting up with a rare smile. "Yeah," Mike added, "she's coming back to life." Despite her progress, Muddy's journey wasn't without its challenges. She struggled to regain her instincts, having been separated from the wild for so long. Sarah decided it was time to introduce her to a specialized outdoor enclosure designed to simulate her natural environment. "We need to remind her how to be a fox," Sarah explained to Jack and Mike during one of their visits. "She'll need those skills if she's going to survive on her own." The enclosure was a small section of forest behind the clinic, complete with trees, rocks, and a shallow stream. Alex spent hours setting up hidden food and obstacles to encourage Muddy to explore. "She's hesitant at first," Alex admitted after the first session, "but she's getting the hang of it." Through it all, Muddy's bond with the humans who saved her grew stronger. Jack and Mike, rough and weathered from years of hard labor, found themselves deeply invested in her recovery. "She's more than just a fox to us now," Jack said during one visit, his voice unusually soft. "She's family." Mike nodded in agreement, his usual grin replaced by a look of quiet determination. "We're not giving up on her." Sarah watched the exchange with a smile. "She's lucky to have you," she said. "Not every animal gets this kind of support." By the end of the third week, Muddy was a different animal. Her coat, once matted and dull, now gleamed with health. Her eyes, once filled with fear, sparkled with curiosity. She moved with confidence, exploring her outdoor enclosure with an energy that hinted at the wild spirit within. "She's almost ready," Sarah told Jack and Mike during their most recent visit. "A few more weeks, and she'll be back where she belongs." The thought brought a mix of emotions. Jack and Mike were proud of how far Muddy had come, but the idea of letting her go was bittersweet. "She deserves to be free," Jack said, his voice steady. "That's what we've been working toward." Mike nodded. "Yeah, but it's gonna be hard to say goodbye." Sarah placed a reassuring hand on Mike's shoulder. "You'll always be part of her story, and that's something special." Muddy's transformation over the past few weeks had been nothing short of miraculous. From a frightened, fragile creature barely clinging to life, she had blossomed into a spirited young fox. The staff at the wildlife clinic marveled at her progress, but Dr. Sarah knew the hardest part was yet to come, preparing Muddy to return to the wild. Introducing the wild. "We're at the most crucial stage now," Sarah explained to Jack and Mike during one of their visits. "Muddy's recovery is impressive, but she's been out of the wild too long. We need to ensure she can fend for herself." Mike frowned, leaning against the doorframe of the clinic's observation room. "What if she doesn't remember how to hunt or survive out there?" "That's why we've created a transitional environment," Sarah replied, her tone confident. "It's a controlled space that mimics her natural habitat. She'll learn by doing." Jack nodded thoughtfully. "And you're sure she'll adapt?" Sarah gave a small smile. "Instinct is powerful. We just have to guide her back to it." The outdoor enclosure. Behind the clinic, the staff had spent weeks building an outdoor enclosure designed to resemble a slice of wilderness. It was equipped with trees for climbing, a small stream for drinking, and hidden caches of food to encourage foraging. Muddy was initially hesitant when introduced to the new space. She sniffed the air cautiously, her ears twitching at every sound. Alex, ever patient, sat nearby, observing her movements and providing subtle encouragement. "She's exploring more each day," Alex told Sarah after a week. Today, she caught her first mouse. Sarah's face lit up with pride. "That's exactly what we want. She's learning." The staff celebrated each milestone, from Muddy climbing a tree for the first time to her successful attempts at hunting. Her confidence grew with every small victory, and soon she was navigating the enclosure with the agility of a fox born in the wild. A visit from Jack and Mike. Jack and Mike made time to visit Muddy during one of her training sessions. They stood behind the enclosure's observation fence, watching as she darted through the trees, her sleek red coat glowing in the sunlight. "She looks so different now," Mike said, his voice tinged with wonder. "Like a real wild fox." "That's because she is," Jack replied, though his tone carried a hint of sadness. Alex joined them, leaning casually on the fence. "She's doing great. A few more weeks, and she'll be ready for release." Mike sighed. "It's gonna be tough letting her go." Alex smiled gently. "That just means you care. But this is what's best for her." Facing challenges, not every day was a success. Some mornings Muddy seemed uninterested in the tasks set up for her. She would sit by the stream, staring into the water, her posture unusually still. "She's having an off day," Sarah observed during one such moment. "Animals, like humans, have their ups and downs. We just need to be consistent." To keep her engaged, the staff introduced more complex challenges. Alex set up scent trails for Muddy to follow, leading her to hidden food sources. The first time she completed the trail, she seemed almost proud of herself, her tail wagging slightly. "She's smart," Jack commented during a later visit. "She's figuring it out." "She is," Sarah agreed, "but she needs to do more than just survive. She needs to thrive." Goodbyes on the horizon. As Muddy's release date approached, the mood at the clinic grew bittersweet. The staff had poured their hearts into her recovery, and the bond they had formed with her was undeniable. "She's ready," Sarah announced one evening after Muddy successfully navigated her most challenging obstacle course yet. "She's strong, independent, and showing all the signs of a wild fox." Jack and Mike came by the next day to hear the news. Mike crouched by the fence, watching Muddy play with a small branch she had dragged into the enclosure. "It's gonna feel empty without her," he said quietly. Jack nodded. "But this is what we wanted, for her to have a second chance." Sarah placed a reassuring hand on Mike's shoulder. "You both did something incredible. You gave her that chance." The final test. The staff planned one final test before Muddy's release, introducing her to a larger, more natural environment in a remote section of forest near the clinic. It would be her first taste of true wilderness, albeit under the watchful eye of Sarah and Alex. "She'll have to rely entirely on her instincts," Sarah explained. "We'll monitor her from a distance, but this is her moment to prove she's ready." When the day arrived, Jack and Mike joined the clinic staff at the forest site. They watched as Sarah opened the transport cage. Muddy hesitated for a moment, her ears flicking back and forth, before stepping onto the forest floor. "She's curious," Alex said, his voice filled with quiet pride. Muddy sniffed the air, her movements cautious but deliberate. Then, with a sudden burst of energy, she darted forward, disappearing into the underbrush. "She's free," Sarah said softly, her eyes glistening with emotion. Jack and Mike stood in silence, watching the spot where Muddy had vanished. "She's gonna be okay," Jack said, his voice steady. Mike nodded. "Yeah, she's ready for this." The day dawned crisp and bright, the kind of morning where every detail felt sharper. The scent of the earth, the rustle of leaves, the faint chirping of birds. It was the perfect day for Muddy's release. The staff at the clinic had spent weeks preparing for this moment, and now they gathered at the edge of a dense forest to bid farewell to the young fox they had all grown to love. Jack and Mike arrived early, their truck rumbling to a stop near the clinic's transport vehicle. Both men stepped out, their faces a mix of excitement and melancholy. "This is it," Jack said, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "Yeah," Mike replied, his eyes scanning the forest ahead. "Feels strange, doesn't it? Letting her go after all this." Dr. Sarah greeted them warmly, her expression calm yet reflective. "You've both done so much for her. Today is the final step in her journey back to the wild." They followed Sarah to the transport crate where Muddy sat quietly. Her bright eyes were alert, scanning her surroundings with curiosity. She seemed ready, her sleek red coat gleaming in the sunlight. "She looks incredible," Mike said, crouching down to get a closer look. "She's come a long way," Sarah agreed. And she's ready for this. The release site had been carefully chosen, a secluded area of protected forest, far from human settlements and full of natural resources. Sarah and her team had scouted it weeks in advance to ensure it would provide everything Muddy needed to thrive. "This spot is perfect for her," Sarah explained as she led the group deeper into the woods. "Plenty of prey, water, and shelter. She'll have a great start here." Jack carried the transport crate, his steps deliberate as they reached the clearing. He placed the crate gently on the ground and stepped back. "Here we go," he said quietly. Sarah knelt by the crate, her hand resting lightly on the latch. "This is your moment, Muddy," she said softly. "Go out there and live the life you were meant to live." With a gentle push, she unlatched the door and stepped back. For a moment, Muddy hesitated, her body tense with uncertainty. Her ears flicked back and forth, listening to the sounds of the forest. "Come on, girl," Mike whispered under his breath. Slowly, Muddy stepped out, her delicate paws touching the forest floor. She sniffed the air, her nose twitching as she took in the unfamiliar scents. Then, in a burst of movement, she darted forward, weaving through the trees with effortless grace. Within seconds, she disappeared into the dense underbrush. "She's gone," Mike said, his voice barely above a whisper. Jack crossed his arms, a small smile on his face. "She's free." The group stood in silence, their eyes fixed on the forest where Muddy had vanished. It was a bittersweet moment, pride mingled with a sense of loss. "She's going to do great out there," Sarah said, breaking the silence. "She has everything she needs." Mike let out a slow breath. "Still feels strange, though, like we're saying goodbye to family." Sarah placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder. "She'll carry a part of you with her, and you'll always be part of her story." Jack nodded. "We did what we set out to do. She's where she belongs." As they packed up and prepared to leave, the forest around them seemed alive with possibility. Birds chirped in the canopy above, and a gentle breeze rustled the leaves. It was as if nature itself was welcoming Muddy home. Back at the clinic, the mood was one of quiet celebration. Sarah gathered her team, thanking them for their hard work and dedication. "Muddy's story is a testament to what we can accomplish when we work together," she said. "She's out there now because of all of you." Jack and Mike stayed for a while, sharing memories of the journey that had brought them here. When it was time to leave, they shook Sarah's hand firmly. "Thanks for everything, Doc," Jack said. "Thank you," Sarah replied, "for giving her a chance." As the sun began to set, Sarah stood at the edge of the forest, her thoughts lingering on Muddy. Somewhere out there, the young fox was starting a new chapter, her wild spirit rekindled. "She'll be fine," Alex said, joining her. "You made sure of that." Sarah smiled. "We all did." The forest grew quiet as twilight fell, a serene reminder that life, in all its forms, continues. And though Muddy was no longer within their reach, she would always be a part of their hearts, a symbol of resilience, hope, and the profound bond between humans and nature.